He kept glancing at the clock, like he was counting the minutes. I didn't know what he was waiting for, until he whispered something that made me freeze. That night changed everything. Please, if you like this video, then please must like and comment your thoughts in comment section. It was one of those stormy Friday nights where the clouds hung so low, you could feel the pressure in your chest. Rain poured down in thick sheets outside our window, and the distant thunder seemed to shake the walls of our house. My husband, Jacob, had just come home from work, drenched and frustrated. I wrapped a towel around his shoulders and tried to lighten the mood with a warm meal I'd prepared: chicken Alfredo, garlic bread, and some wine. He smiled faintly, but I could tell he was exhausted. An hour later, the doorbell rang. "That must be Chris," Jacob said, setting his glass down. "He was just finishing a late job near here and the roads are too rough to drive home in this rain. I told him to crash here tonight." I nodded. I'd met Chris a few times before, Jacob's longtime friend from college, the kind of man who always made you feel like you were being studied when he looked at you. He had sharp eyes, an intense presence, and this quiet charisma that made you nervous and curious at the same time. Chris stepped in, shaking off his coat, his clothes damp from the rain. "Sorry to intrude," he said with a polite smile. "Didn't mean to interrupt your night." "You're not," I replied. "You're welcome here." We all sat at the dining table. The rain kept pouring outside, the windows blurring with fog. Jacob and Chris fell into familiar banter: sports, business, random memories from their college days. I watched as Chris glanced at me now and then, subtle, lingering. His smile was calm, but his eyes told another story. They weren't just looking. They were searching. And he kept checking the clock. Over and over. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe he had a call. Or a deadline. But something about the way he stared made the air feel thicker. His gaze lingered just a little too long. When I got up to clear the plates, he offered to help. In the kitchen, as we stood side by side drying dishes, I felt the silence between us press in. "You always cook like that?" he asked, softly. "Like what?" "Like you're trying to make someone fall in love with you." I looked up, startled. He smirked, but his eyes were serious. "I didn't mean anything by it," he added, gently. "Just complimenting the meal." I forced a smile, but inside, I was suddenly very aware of how close we were. The way his arm brushed mine, the warmth of his breath as he spoke. I told myself to keep it together, to brush it off. Jacob came into the kitchen and the spell broke. Chris stepped away casually, leaning against the counter as if nothing happened. But I felt it. That tension. That hidden current of something unsaid. It was past midnight when Jacob finally turned in for the night. He'd had too much wine and mumbled something about having an early meeting in the morning. I helped him to bed, tucked him in, and kissed his forehead. As I walked out of the bedroom, the hallway felt unnaturally quiet. The rain had eased to a soft drizzle. I turned off a few lights and headed toward the guest room where Chris was supposed to be sleeping. But he wasn't there. Instead, he was standing near the hallway window, arms folded, staring out into the misty darkness. When I stepped closer, he turned toward me slowly. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Too many thoughts." I nodded, not knowing what to say. I didn't want to ask what thoughts. I was afraid to hear them. He took a step forward. "May I ask you something?" "Sure," I said, nervously. "Have you ever been in a moment where something felt so right, even if it was all wrong?" My heart started pounding. "Chris." "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I shouldn't say this." Not here. Not now. It's just. I've been holding it in. Every time Jacob talked about you, I'd picture you, but it was nothing like seeing you in person. You're different. And I can't stop thinking about you. His words hung in the air like electricity. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. He stepped a little closer. I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it. It's been eating me up. I felt the walls closing in around me. The house was too quiet. Too dim. My chest was tight. I turned away, walking toward the kitchen to grab some water and calm down. But he followed me. Please, he said, his voice low. Just one thing. I turned around, my back against the counter. Chris, this is not okay. My husband, your friend, is sleeping in the next room. He nodded slowly. I know. I know it's wrong. But sometimes what's wrong is the only thing that feels alive. There was silence between us, and I was breathing too fast. I just want a wish, he whispered. One. Not a touch. Not a promise. Just, say something to me that will let me feel I'm not crazy. His eyes locked into mine. There was no pressure. No demand. Just yearning. And against all reason, against my better judgment, I said something I probably shouldn't have. Maybe in another life, Chris. His eyes closed briefly. As if my words gave him peace. And when he opened them again, the air between us shifted. He reached out, only to tuck a strand of my hair behind my ear, his fingers brushing my cheek. That's enough, he said softly. That's all I needed. But it wasn't. For either of us. The night stretched on. I tried to return to my room, tried to sleep beside Jacob, but every sound, every whisper of wind outside reminded me of what I just felt. And then, I heard it. A soft knock. I opened the door, and there he was. I'm sorry, he whispered. But I can't walk away from this night without telling you something more. I didn't stop him. I didn't know why. We sat on the couch in the dim living room, barely inches apart. He looked into my eyes and said, "Tonight, just let me dream with you. That's all I ask." We stayed like that for hours, whispers in the dark, glances that spoke louder than words. There was no betrayal, no physical step crossed, but the emotional storm was stronger than any thunder outside. At one point, he leaned closer and said, "If I could, I'd ride into your life like a storm and take all your pain away." It was poetic. It was wrong. But I wanted to believe it. I fell asleep with my head resting lightly against his shoulder. And for that night, I let the storm carry me somewhere dangerous. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains. I woke up alone on the couch. A blanket was wrapped around me. Chris was gone. A note sat on the coffee table. "You gave me something beautiful last night. Not a kiss. Not a promise. Just hope. That maybe, someday, we all get a second chance at the life we truly want. Thank you. I'll carry this night in my heart forever." See? Jacob never found out. And I never told him. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I crossed an invisible line. But sometimes, the most powerful connections are the ones that never fully happen, only linger, like sparks in a storm, refusing to fade. And to this day, whenever it rains, I remember the night his friends stayed over, and all the things that almost were.